thank you again, everybody. Thank you to our panelists for joining us on this career panel tonight. What we are trying to do is bring some perspective, of students who aren't too far removed from their high school experience, so they still remember kind of what they did and how they went through the college search process and what they did in college. Maybe they're currently in college, or they've started their careers and now they have a little bit of experience to share. So we're going to kind of cover that gamut of things in the next hour or so. So we're going to have the panelists think back to what they did in high school, how they approached their college search and selection process, and then what their experience at college was, how they kind of figured out what they wanted to major in, how they started doing their job search, and then what they're currently doing. So with that said, I'm going to start with the first question for our panelists. I'm going to have them introduce themselves. If any of you have, any participants have questions as we go along, put them in the chat. We'll try to get to some of them as we go along, and we'll kind of see where we're at. So the first question to the panelists is going to be, tell us about yourself, including what you're currently doing. So if you're working, what company, how long have you been there, what exactly is your job title, and if you're in college, tell us that as well. If you could all share what college you attend or attended, and that what major you had as well. So I'm going to start with Joe, if you want to unmute and share your story.
Sure. Hey guys, my name's Joe. So I guess I'll start from the beginning. I graduated Hersey in 2014, so 6-ish years ago. Then from 2014 to 2018, normal 4 years, I went to U of I, the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, a few hours south of here. I was in a school called ECE, which is the School of Electrical and Computer Engineering. I graduated with a major in electrical engineering, but really the coursework I did was closer to like computer science, you could say, and that's what I ended up going into. 2.5 years back, I started at CME Group, which you might know as like the Merck or the Board of Trade. That's all the same thing. This is not exactly correct, but you could roughly think of it as like the New York Stock Exchange equivalent of Chicago, even though they specialize in a few different things. But yeah, that's me.
Great, thank you, Joe. Maria A.
Hi, I'm Maria A. I graduated from Hersey in 2015, and I graduated from Bradley University in 2019 with a Bachelor's of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I've been working for the past year and almost a half now at Deublin Company in Waukegan, Illinois. We make rotary unions and slip rings, which go into like CNC machines, and actually one of our products is going to be used to help build the new electric vehicles for Amazon. So a lot of cool stuff going on at our company.
Awesome, thank you, welcome. All right, Maria B.
Hi everyone, my name is Maria Barlas. Some of you guys may know my little sister Sophia. She is a junior at Hersey right now. So I graduated Hersey in 2015, and then I went to Valparaiso University for my freshman and sophomore year. And then I transferred to Northern Illinois University and completed my degree during my junior and senior year from there. And I've studied mechanical engineering throughout the 4 years. I've been working for about 1.5 years at Shamrock International in Itasca, which is a fastener supplier company. And I create prints for them and create test procedures as well. So I love my job.
Great, thank you. And last but not least, Anthony.
Hi everyone, my name is Anthony Anton. I'm currently a senior studying mechanical engineering at Purdue University. Throughout my time here, I've also gotten the opportunity to have 2 internships, one with a company in Indiana that focused on industrial automation, and then one with an automotive company, which is something that I'd like to go into in the future, called Continental Automotive Group, and that one was in Illinois. Currently, I'm searching for a full-time position in a design or a testing role for mechanical engineering. So that's a little bit about me, and I graduated in 2017 from Hersey.
Awesome, thank you. So next question, if you guys could think back to your senior year at Hersey, how did you go about making kind of that final college decision? So if you can remember, what factors were important to you? What what were you looking for in a school? Maybe if you remember, what schools were you kind of deciding between? And then you kind of told us where you ended up going, but like, what was the kind of deciding factors? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but whatever you can remember from there. So we'll start back with you, Joe.
Yeah, for sure. So I don't know, everyone else said this besides me, but I've been working for 2.5 years. So there you go. So man, the college search process was tough. The career services people at the time did a great job, but it's still just like a super tough process in my opinion, because you just don't know, you're making a really big decision with not a ton of information, just because, at that stage, you just don't know that much. But basically what was important to me was, first of all, the program I was going into. How I chose that was the title of the class is AP Physics C, Electricity and Magnetism. That was a course I took my senior year. Well, it must have been part of the course the previous year because I would have already accepted where I was going. But there was a portion of that called circuits, and I really liked that, which is why I ended up going into electrical engineering. But as far as the schools I was choosing between, the school I really wanted to go to, if I'm being honest, was Northwestern. As a lot of people on here, if they're seniors, know, the waitlist process is pretty terrible. Like, you get waitlisted and then you don't know if you're even in until you have to accept other schools. I don't know, maybe they'll fix that someday, but I got into a couple good schools on the East Coast. But what it came down to for me was I wanted to be relatively close to home. I knew something to keep in mind is like where you want to get a job, because I knew I wanted to get a job in Chicago. So a school, especially, well, at least in Illinois, even though it's a few hours away, is, those like networking opportunities are best. If I had ended up going to any of those schools, I probably would have been, being looked at for more jobs, maybe in like New York City or Boston, which is not exactly where I wanted to end up. I wanted to be close to home and close to family. So that's one of the main reasons that led me to that. As far as, in general, in-state schools are supposed to be cheap. U of I is not cheap. And, for all you people applying, you probably know that. But that was the determining factors for me were, I guess, more location and family versus an actual school. But it just so happened that there was a great engineering school right nearby. So that was good.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we definitely appreciate honesty from everyone as well, because that's really important. Don't, without trashing any particular institution or anybody, definitely, be honest with us. So let's see, we got Maria A, you're up next.
Yep. So I similarly looked at location. I wanted to stay in the Midwest. I knew that for sure. And then I started looking more at like program rankings to make sure that the engineering program I was going to be like a higher quality. And for me, what ended up being most important was the size of the school. Bradley is kind of like a mid-sized school, but when you're actually on campus, it feels a lot smaller. And just like the way the professors spoke to me when I went on the tours and the way that the student guides spoke to me on tours really helped me realize that like the professors really cared about you succeeding. I had gone to some bigger schools, like Big Ten schools, and toured there, but it wasn't until I did like a second tour, which I found really useful, and specifically like a major tour for like engineering, that I was able to make my final decision.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Maria B.
All right, so I previewed the questions beforehand and I actually brought up my college decision spreadsheet. So I have like all of the factors listed down. So my most important factors that I did were cost of attendance, scholarships received, so like what the final cost of attendance would be for me, distance / time from home. So my mom and I agreed on a 3-hour radius because for college, you really do need to factor in that you will be driving this distance about 8 times a year. The university size, so if it was a small school or a big school, the College of Engineering size particularly. So if it's like a Big Ten school, but their College of Engineering is only about 1,000 students, that's going to be a good impact as well. And then if it was a reach, a target, or a safety, so that I could predict my competitiveness with classmates. So the schools that I was deciding between were University of Iowa, Valparaiso University, Marquette, and Bradley. But I ended up choosing Valparaiso University. because all of the connections that they made with me were so very personal. And I was able to do 2 overnight visits with the students, and the professors really wanted to make connections with you. And when I ended up accepting at Valpo, the College of Engineering's dean actually hand wrote me a letter saying, when you attend, please bring wild fish sushi from Arlington Heights, because they really did want to focus on making it so one-on-one with the students. So yeah, I would say that look for how the school treats you particularly.
Great, thank you. And Anthony.
I think everybody covered the major factors, so I'll kind of just go into my particular story. So Maria's my older sister. I actually went on most of her college visits with her. So I kind of got an idea before, when I was a sophomore in high school. So that was good. And then I applied to a lot of small schools as well as big schools. And unlike my sister, I thought I'd also thrive well in a Big Ten school. So that's why I ended up going Big Ten. And I'd say another thing that really drove me towards Purdue, and I'd look at all the schools you apply to, is they have a first-year engineering program where you kind of get a flavor of each different kind of engineering, and then you have until your sophomore year to actually choose what you go into. So that was something that really drove me towards it. It was also, I'd say distance was a big one for me too. I didn't want to be too far, so I applied to mostly all Midwest schools, and then also cost of attendance, of course. And then I know when I went on the campus for Purdue, I was like, okay, this is home for me. Like, I visited U of I and everything, and I was like, okay, this is pretty nice. I can see myself here. I'd been there a couple of times for some different math team competitions from Hersey. But then when I went to Purdue, I was like, okay, this is U of I, but for me, this just feels so much more like home. So I guess it's particular to anybody. It's particular to you, and I'd say try to do virtual tours and in-person tours if you can, because that's really where my decision was made.
Great, thank you. So yeah, I think it was pretty clear that all of our panelists really took the college search process, pretty thoroughly, pretty seriously. They really looked at the factors that were important to them. They looked at, everything from, if there's any seniors, we talked about the 5 Ps of the process. Juniors, that's coming up later tonight, actually, if you're on this, from Hersey. But the place, the program, the price, all those sort of things. And you can see in the chat, I kind of put a really quick summary of some of the schools that have been talked about. So you can see we have panelists who went to in-state publics, out-of-state publics, private schools, large, medium-sized. So it's whatever is the best fit, for you is really, really important. So I just want to keep that in mind. So moving on, talk about some of the experiences you had in high school and or college that you participated in that really helped you kind of figure out that this was the path for you. So whether it was classes you took, I know Joe already mentioned, AP Physics was a big one. So was it classes? Was it clubs? Was it something more so in college? What kind of helped bring you to where you are with your major and then your actual career field? So we'll go back to Joe.
Sure. So I'll just talk briefly. I played football, basketball, volleyball, and ran track in high school. So not a lot of stuff really led. And I did Scholastic Bowl, which was fun. None of those things really led me to school, but I just give you an idea of like what I did in high school. I would say that mostly for me, it ended up being coursework. In high school, my plan, I guess, was kind of like I was going to take as many AP classes as I could, just try to get as much credit as I could. And my idea was really just like expanding my options and just having as many options as I could possibly have. And I mean, it worked out relatively well because I could see myself going into a lot of different things from there, but it wasn't a great idea as far as picking one particular thing. So I would say, contrary to me, I mean, you could do what I did and figure it out too. But maybe if you focus on, taking a lot of classes in one particular area that you're interested in versus just kind of a little bit of everything like I did, it might be, a bit of an easier way to come to that decision. But then in college, one thing, the most important thing to getting a job by far is internships. I'm part of the recruiting team for my company, and we interview prospective new hires and prospective interns. And that's what it's all about. Like everybody, they always say, people forget what's previously on your resume. So once you're in college, they're going to figure about high school. Once you have an internship, you know, they might not care your GPA, stuff like that. So that's always the most important thing. So I would say if you have an idea of, so I entered at a place called Conversion. There's an ad serving kind of company, and I did that twice. And I would say overall, focus on internships, focus on doing them as early as you can, and get a variety of good internships, because that's all people care about when you end up getting a job overall. And yeah, that's kind of my main takeaways. I would say internships are the most important.
Great, thank you. Maria A.
So for me, I started getting interested in engineering way back in 8th grade, actually. I knew that I liked math and I knew that I liked science. And one day before we started like signing up for classes for our freshman year, our principal gave a speech to everyone about engineering and Project Lead the Way. So I started taking Project Lead the Way classes and experimented with the different types to learn more about what types of engineering there were. And in addition to that, I also took AP Physics. And in that, you explore a lot of engineering concepts, actually. So through those two things, I was able to kind of understand what I wanted to do. I was also involved in robotics in high school, which was a lot of fun. It gave me a lot of hands-on experience with design, like the design process, actually manufacturing things. And then you also had fun competing with your friends. And so that was my high school experience. And then in college, I was heavily involved in the Society of Women Engineers, which played a major role in a lot of like my professional development by going to conferences that they have and by having speakers come into our meetings every other week. And then, yeah, I also had a couple internships. One of them actually came out of a study abroad experience that I had. Our engineering program, you could go with one of our professors to Germany for 3 weeks, and it's a sister city of the city that our university was in. So our professor was like, would anyone be interested in having an internship abroad? And I expressed interest and he helped recommend me. And I actually got a chance to work over there for a summer. So you never know what you're gonna encounter, really. But things like that, leadership roles through some of the clubs I was in, like Student Senate and even like a service sorority, really helped me.
Great. So definitely keep your options open. You never know what, you know, like, oh, I want to study abroad, and then just to go to see the world, and then it comes out to be some other kind of opportunity. So that's cool. Thank you. All right, Maria B.
So in high school, I was involved in robotics with Anthony and Maria. We were actually on the same robotics team. And that was very good for learning hands-on of what I wanted to do with engineering. So I learned that I was more focused on mechanical application rather than the electrical stuff. So that was a good determining factor of this is exactly what I want to do with my life. And that's really how I found it. And then, so in college, I was involved with the Society of Women Engineers, Kappa Kappa Gamma sorority. And I think that the balance of professional development and also being in Greek life for social aspects, it's a good balance of you have your academics and then you have help to grow professionally and also to grow socially. So those were good. And then I also did 2 internships. One was a design internship and one was a manufacturing internship. And it really helped me learn that design engineering is what I want to do rather than being on the floor and working with the actual problems that come up on the assembly line. And then I also did study abroad during my last semester of college, and my study abroad program directly aligned with my job that I ended up getting after graduation because it was in China. So Chinese supply chain is what my job is basically now. And yeah, I think that just saying yes to all opportunities that come your way really is what is going to open up all your doors. So if something slightly piques your interest, I say definitely yes, commit to it, and then see where it takes you.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I would echo that for classes too, right? If there's some classes you think a club here in high school you think might be interesting, definitely check it out. It's definitely worth it. As you can hear, some of the students, panelists, got some really good insight by trying classes and by being involved in extracurriculars. And just before you get to Anthony, no matter what school you're at, course selection for next year, unless you're a senior, is already coming up. I know at Hersey it's starting next week already. So really take a look at the options for what classes you can take and try them out. So Anthony, last person here, talk about your experiences for us, please.
Yeah, so when I was at Hersey, like both Marias said, I was a member of the robotics team for all 4 years. And then I'd say another experience that I found really helpful was participating in the high mileage vehicle, like the building of that in the computer integrated manufacturing course. So that kind of sparked my intro into automotive sector. And then in college now, I've been a member of the Purdue Baja racing team, where we build a single seat off-road race car from scratch every year. And then that kind of really helped me out, because now I've gotten from a basic member my freshman year, I moved into suspension design. Then I was suspension design lead my junior year, so I got into a leadership role. And now I'm actually running the team as a senior and doing it as my capstone project for my senior design. So I'd say that has really helped me out. And that's mainly what I got my internships through, just talking about all the experiences I got through that club. And then I'd say at Hersey, some classes that really helped me out were AP Physics, AP Calculus, but then also just branching out into digital electronics through the PLTW courses. And then in college, I've kind of branched out a little bit. Your junior and senior year, you can kind of focus on some technical electives at my school. And I'm pretty sure you can make a focus at any other school as well, where you can just kind of choose some different engineering classes that you want to focus on for your industry experience, or just to learn a little bit more about different topics. So that's mainly what I've done through college and high school.
We had a question, Anthony, and thanks, Joe, also for answering it in the chat. When it comes to the bigger schools like U of I or Purdue, was it hard to connect with teachers at a bigger school? And did that affect, is it harder to get internships? Joe answered for you, U of I, but what would your experience been so far at a big school like Purdue?
Yeah, so I'd say it's definitely not, like listening to what my sister had told me about at her smaller school, like Bradley, the professors seem to come out to you and like talk to you and see how you're doing in their classes. I'd say mine are not as much like that. You need to go and reach out to them, but they tell you right away that they have weekly office hours. And if you email them, they can meet you one-on-one outside of that. So office hours, right now it's looking online, but usually it's just one-on-one. You get to ask your questions or even just talk to them if you want. They're personable people. They're people outside of school as well. So you can just talk to them about life if you want to. And then I'd say, like Joe mentioned, TAs are one of your biggest assets in college. So for me, all my TAs are graduate students. So usually they've gone through what I've gone through just a couple years out. So they know what you're going through and they know how to teach it somehow differently than the professors. A lot of professors at bigger campuses are running research as well. So you have to think that they're not as focused on learning the way that, or they may not know how to teach you most effectively like your TAs will, since they've just been through it. So it's kind of a whole different aspect if you go to a bigger school versus small school, but I think that you can connect either way if you seek out that connection. And then on internships, I think that you can get internships no matter where you go. It's pretty much just how driven you are to get that experience. Because for me, I got an internship after my freshman year, just because I think I reached out early on and was pretty passionate about getting it and talking to recruiters. It's a lot of luck, and you'll find that in recruiting, but not luck, but also just how you talk to the recruiters. But that's a whole different topic. So I'd say you can get those opportunities no matter where you go if you're driven. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, great. Thank you. I would say from my experience visiting a lot of colleges, I think almost every college I've visited, when they talk about internships, always seems to say we have more internships that we can fill. So I think if you're looking for them, like Anthony just said, if you're looking for one, no matter what school you're at, they're out there. These colleges have built lots of connections over the years. And so whether big or small school, they're going to be out there. You just got to go look for them. Another question that came through that I think you all sort of answered, but just want to reiterate for everyone about what's good to take in high school and what clubs. A lot of you mentioned physics. I can tell you as a counselor, physics is really looked at big time. The higher you can go with physics and math, the better. Project Lead the Way, of course, is a good option as well. You know, any clubs, some of the clubs were mentioned, robotics and things like that are also good, at least to help you figure out if that's what you want to do. So each school might have a little bit different class offerings or different clubs, but for sure when it comes to classes, physics is definitely a big one. So keep that in mind. So moving on, my next question for all of you is, you guys, I'm going to move on to what's the hardest part of engineering? Like what is the most challenging part, whether it's at your job, whether it's your classes, what is the thing that you think is either the hardest or maybe the least glamorous, if you want to say the least fun part of it, you could do that too. So let's start there with Joe.
Hey, so yeah, it's a good question. It definitely is almost opposite for me, at least when I'm looking at school versus like my job. So in school, the hardest part for me was in high school, I was great at like, for lack of a better word, like memorization. Like you take a class, like you memorize, you know, the things about it, and then you can regurgitate them on the test more or less. Like that's how, and that's not even just high school. That's how a lot of college majors work, like almost all 4 years. But engineering is kind of different, and it took me a while to kind of figure it out. Where you like you're learning like a process more than exactly like material. And when you take a test, at least at U of I, like in the higher level classes, like you're gonna have to apply it to something you haven't really seen before and just use kind of like the tools you've developed. It's kind of vague, and I know it's like maybe you'll understand it when you start doing it, but that was the hardest part for me. And if you have those kind of skills that I had, you might not do well at it at first, as I didn't, but you'll like pick it up over time. And that's why you should definitely go to office hours and like form study groups and stuff like that, like communicate with your peers, for sure. At work, the difference is like, so it's not a competitive environment, at least my job. Like at school, you're competing with the other people there. At work, it's cooperative because we're all trying to accomplish the same goal. So, you know, the people around you like want to help you out because it helps everyone. And with that being said, the hardest part, like the most like lame part, I guess, is like when I'm like developing an application at work, it's like a full stack web application. It's pretty fun, you know, like there's struggles with it, but you kind of enjoy the process and you can see like the fruits of your labor. But a lot of times we'll be doing like support work, and we'll, you know, customers will just be complaining about this and that. Most like sometimes it's not even our fault and they just don't know what they're doing. So yeah, that's definitely the struggle when it comes to work. But because it's cooperative, like your the struggles are different than in school.
Great, thank you. All right, Maria A.
I agree with Joe very much on the hard part of college. Learning how to study more of the concepts and really getting those ingrained in your memory so that when you look at a test question, you can say, oh, this concept applies here. I'm making these assumptions, and this is how I can solve this problem, is kind of very different than having to just memorize an equation or a like bullet point, really. I found that out the hard way in one of my thermodynamic courses, and you have to just like learn to get back on your feet afterwards and realize what you need to change. And the best way to do that is to work with other people, I would say, and talk to your professors. Because if you're not having an easy time figuring out a concept, your professor can maybe explain it to you in a different way, or your classmate can explain it to you in a different way. And that's what ended up helping me, just like looking at things from a different perspective. Yeah, that's the most difficult part in college for me. As for the job right now, I ended up at a company that makes really niche products. So the hardest part for me is the learning curve to understand what exactly needs to go into this design, because I am in a more design-based position. And so far I've been doing more like basic level designs, things that are tweaking one or two things here and there, not just from the bottom up. because there are so many like fluid properties and things like that that I need to think about that I haven't really been exposed to in this capacity before. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. All right, Maria B.
All right, I would say that for studying engineering, my hardest part was time management of such a heavy course load. So for engineering, you can expect about 18 credits per semester, and that's just kind of standard across the board. So they recommend that per credit hour, it's 3 hours of studying. So if you're taking 18 credits, it's going to be 54 hours of studying. So learning how to time manage that and budget your schedule to accommodate all of those deadlines and all of your exams, learning how to get in that groove is probably the hardest part of a first or second year student. And then for an engineering professional as a job, I would say that for my design engineer position, there's so many applicable standards for fasteners and for automotive applications and all of the different industries. So cross-referencing the International Fastener Institute standards with something from Honda or something from any other company, those often don't match up. So deciding what tolerances should be or what kind of material or hardness conditions, getting those correct would probably be the most tedious and difficult aspects of a design engineer role.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point too. In college, you have a lot more, not in the classroom time. So you're like, oh, I only have class a couple hours a day. Wow. But then you just list, 54 hours a week of studying is more than like a typical 40-hour a week job. So definitely an interesting kind of thing, the transition difference, a big difference from high school, where if we were in a normal year, you would be in school for 7-8 hours a day, and then have maybe less work at night. But college, you're in way less in class, but more out of class. So just wanted to highlight that. All right, Anthony, anything else to add about the hardest part?
I'm just kind of going to reiterate because those are the points that I have. So transitioning into college, I found that I had a lot of unstructured time. So everything in high school for you is structured. You go to periods 1 through 8 or whatever it is, and then you go home and then you do your homework and you then do whatever you want to do. But for me, like my days right now I'm in a 14 or 13 credit hour load right now as a senior. As you get into harder classes, more of that is just out of class studying time that goes on. So your course load's pretty even throughout. But I pretty much have class for 3 hours a day, and then it's up to me to be motivated and do the studying outside of class to actually succeed. So I'd say that's something definitely that you don't have to do in high school as much. And then going on from that as well, something they always tell us here at Purdue is you're learning a process through these very specific courses. But then even as I've seen going into my internships, stuff doesn't directly apply. So like I was working with solenoids a lot, which I'd never done before, and running tests on different machines that I'd never heard of in college at all, but just applying those processes that I learned through college. That's kind of the bigger picture that you have to be gaining from college as well. So it's difficult because you're not just trying to work towards every test. You have to think about, I'm also trying to be prepared for industry where I might not encounter just these things that I'm learning in my classes, but there must be some bigger picture behind my courses that I have to get out of it. So I'd say that's kind of the hard part of engineering itself, transitioning from even college to industry. So I'd say that's about it.
Great, thank you. All right, so on the flip side now, what is something that you enjoy the most about it? Whether it's your specific job or just engineering in general, what do you find the most joy in? What do you like the most about it? So Joe?
Yeah, so I'm taking people's answers. I'll try to be brief with this one, but it's just the idea that you're not always, but you're oftentimes doing something new, even if it's not new, like in the entire world. It's often new to you or your team or your company, and just the idea that things don't probably get stale as easily, maybe as in other walks of life. That's always a nice thing. And I mean, you got to consult the elephant in the room of you. If you go to like a good engineering program, more likely than not, it's going to cost you a lot of money. And engineering is one of the careers that makes the most money with 4 years of school. There's plenty of other, avenues that make a ton more money if you go to school, 2, 4, 8 years more. But as far as a 4-year degree, engineering is kind of a good way to make that bang for your buck. And when you have 6 figures of debt like me, that's something you might want. So just something to keep in mind.
Great, thank you. Maria A.
So my favorite thing is that, like Joe said, I'm always learning something new each day, especially since, like I said, my field is really niche. Even if it's like something about Excel that I didn't know before that I can apply to my job, or something about like how to communicate better. That's a big part of working as an engineer, and even in college, like communication helps a lot. But another thing that I really like is just how fulfilling it is when I design something and then see the actual solution and get to test the solution and we get to ship it out to our customer. Or if something has been sent back to a customer and I'm looking at it to figure out what has gone wrong within the union, being able to pinpoint what it is and problem solving that and seeing my solution work and be implemented maybe somewhere else in the company. So that's what I think is my favorite, learning something new and seeing my problem solving go to work.
Great, thank you. Maria B.
Like Maria Anton said, I think that my favorite part would have to be the start to finish of the engineering world. So for a lot of my projects, the timeline can either be 3 months to a year. So knowing that I originally drew up a project as like a freehand sketch on a doodle pad and then made the CAD drawing, and throughout the timeline of 3 months to a year, I'm able to hold the final product in my hands and know that so much effort was when it had gone into it, and seeing all of the work behind it and holding it at the end. That's the best part. Yep.
All right, great, thanks. Anthony.
I'll make it quick because I pretty much had the same thing to say, but I'd say just even from starting out in high school in the robotics club, that was kind of the first time that I actually made something from scratch. And then at the end of the year, got to hold and test drive our team's product. And then going through even college I know this sounds nerdy, but writing those 20-page reports for heat and mass transfer lab reports and just seeing your final product and being like, dang, this is really cool. I got to learn all this. And now I have this report, which I can turn in and show how much I've learned. And then I'd say that's why I really like my racing team. Because at the end of the year, you literally have a race car that you built and you're driving it around. And competing with other colleges. So I'd say completing a project start to finish is one of my favorite things about engineering.
Cool. So just to kind of summarize some of that, it sounds like, if you're looking into engineering, it's people who like to design things, but I have to be maybe a little bit patient, right? You can't just, it's not like instant gratification, like I do it and now it's done. It takes a process. So some patience, some flexibility, some willingness to learn. So somebody, correct me if I'm wrong in what I'm saying there, but that's kind of what I'm getting, out of it. So people who like to try new things, like to, see something go from start to finish and have like a sense of like a real accomplishment, at the end. So just wanted to kind of summarize it because I think that's important. Sometimes we go into a job and we want to know like, how did it work or what happened right away? And it doesn't always work like that. Sometimes, we have to see the big picture, down the road. So I'm going to throw out a slightly new, different question that wasn't on your list, but it's not too hard. It just kind of came up with what I was thinking here. I haven't heard anyone mention that they have like a double major or a minor, or that they really change their major at any point. Did any of you do you have a double major, change your major? You guys mentioned some of the workload. Anthony said yours is a little bit lighter now as a senior. Did AP or project lead the way credits, kind of help lighten any of the load? So we can go with whoever wants to, we don't have to go in order if you don't have something to say, but anybody have anything to speak to that?
Sure, I'll go just because it's my order anyway or whatever.
Mhm.
That's changing your major is a huge thing in college, and a lot of people do it, and it's oftentimes fine. But you should be careful because, for example, like at U of I at least. So first of all, a lot of times when you go from a 2-year program to a 4-year program, they will screw you over and trick you and try to make you take 5 years and spend a lot more money. So be careful about that and make sure all your credits transfer. But so I did electrical engineering. Well, part of ECE is like electrical and computer engineering. So that was my major. I picked up a minor in computer science, and that was basically ended up being my major, but it couldn't be officially because then they would have made me take a 5th year and spend 25 grand more, which I didn't want to do. So just something to keep in mind. At my school, Project Lead the Way, I did Project Lead the Way for 3 years in high school, and it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I think it's a good experience. But it didn't give me any credit in college. I don't know if it gave anybody else here credit, but AP was big. AP was nice because you can ditch a couple years of math and science in college. That's they're weed out classes. They suck. You don't want to do them in college if you can help it. And also, when your course load is like lightened up a little bit, you can take on like maybe 2 big hard classes in one semester, and then you don't have the little peripheral like math and science there to kind of weigh you down. So just my 2 cents.
Awesome. Yeah, Maria B.
So when I was at Valpo for 2 years, I was in their honors college, and their honors college program is basically a minor in humanities. So as a mechanical engineer, you don't really need a minor in humanities, but it is a large coursework to accommodate. So getting a minor with an engineering course load is not very common just because of how many credits it's required. I would say that you don't really need a minor if you want to, and it's like something that you can tack on, like maybe it's a biomedical engineering minor and you only need to take 1 biology course. Do that, it's fine, it's fun. But if it's something that's out of the way, I would say just focus on the main course load, just because it's easier to get your feet wet and also know what you're going to do.
At the school that I went to, a lot of my AP credits were able to transfer. So I ended up almost like a semester ahead and was considering doing a business minor at some point. But because of the internship that I took in Germany, I ended up taking that semester to just intern. So that's like something that you can do if you're able to transfer as many AP credits as you can. That would accommodate a minor potentially. But you can also just end up taking more specified technical electives so that you can kind of go into that minor, but not really be in it. Like if you want to do something more like quality engineering, you can take classes that are similar to that as your technical electives your senior year. I wanted to learn more about business, like I said, so I took this class called Engineering Design for Profit, and that actually has helped me a lot in my job now. So it's things like that that you can do if you don't have room for a full-on minor.
Yeah, and I'd also say that AP credits transferred from my college, but it was dependent on your score. So when you go to a bigger college, they'll probably require a higher score on that. But I was able to skip through, I think, 1.5 years of math. So that's kind of why I get a lighter class load these last couple of semesters, which is very nice. So that way I'd say if you do have that time, then you can definitely add on a minor or do some other way more involved club like an SAE team like I'm in for the racing. And then other than that, yeah, PLTW credits, although the classes helped me a lot, they didn't transfer directly, but I definitely still recommend taking them, especially if you're a junior, because you'll gain a lot of experience through those. And yeah, I have a lot of friends who are taking minors, and it's good to gain some breadth in some other aspects. And I know a lot of mechanical engineers at least take like a biomedical or a computer minor, because that's something you're usually interested in, and it looks good if you tack that on. And then to answer Irina's question from the chat, she wasn't sure if she wanted to major in engineering or science, but some specific aspects of engineering themselves. So I'd say I have some friends in physics themselves, or physics, pure physics, and you don't really have as much application or kind of engineering. You're always following a design process where you're like validating, whether it be code or mechanical stuff where you're designing actual components that go on like cars, for example. You kind of follow a the design process, but then your pure sciences kind of delve deep into the theory behind everything. Whereas in mechanical engineering, for example, like I'm taking thermodynamics. So that's like the physics of heat transfer and different energy transfers. But maybe in the physics side, you just do, yeah, I'm not sure exactly how it, actually, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, but you don't really apply it as, you don't really talk about applications. So in my thermo class, we also talked about like nuclear reactors. So maybe in your physics class, you just talk about the smaller stuff about how heat's actually transferring at the micro scale earlier than you would in mechanical engineering, where that would probably be a graduate level course. So you talk more about application. I'm not sure if that helped, but hopefully it did.
Yeah, thank you. So I would say too, to the question some of you guys mentioned was, take the different classes. If you still have room here in high school to take Intro to Engineering, take it, because I listen to this whole panel and I do college and career counseling, and I still honestly don't understand 100% what engineers do. I've been into our project lead the way rooms, and that's totally helped when I've watched students like design things on the computer using the different programs. So there's no better way to figure out kind of what something is than to actually start doing it. So if you haven't taken an engineering class, try to take one. Take an intro class, even if you're a senior now, take it in high school. Do a summer program at a college or somewhere like that. If you don't have room in your schedule, whatever kind of experience you can get, to do it. Go to a camp or something like that, depending on the grade you're in. So, and then Maria B made a good point too in the chat that at college, you're going to really want to use your career services, your career advisor, because they can definitely help. You may have a general career center. You may have advisors within your departments. You may have you definitely have your professors who I would probably guess 100% of the time have worked actually in that field. And that's a question to ask too, maybe when you are looking for colleges, have your professors actually worked in the field? Or did they just major in engineering and now they're teaching it like right away? So definitely any way you can get a hands-on experience and talk to people would definitely be good. So with that said, it kind of leads me into the final question here, is we have maybe like 10 minutes or so left. And if anyone else, participants out there, do have any final kind of general questions about engineering, not necessarily real college specific, but just in general, please put them in the chat now. Otherwise, as you're doing that, my last question basically is, what's your final advice? What is your final advice for high school students who are looking to go into the engineering field, and what can they maybe do either in the college application process or in the internship and job application process down the road to really set themselves apart, to really stand out? So any advice you have, anything that's worked for you, anything, Joe mentioned you recruit people, anything that you look for, or anything that's a red flag, definitely share that, please. So we'll start. Joe, you can go ahead first.
Yeah, sure. So it's good that you kind of like separated it out, like what sets yourself apart, kind of now, like applying to a program versus like getting an internship versus getting a job. Because I'm not an admissions counselor, but I can say things like Project Lead, the way AP classes obviously are huge, and people love to look at extracurriculars. So that's kind of like the name of the game in that regard. When you're going for an internship, at least in my field, it's mostly kind of, it's somewhat objective, because we have like tests, like coding challenges kind of that we give people, both on site, well, when we used to be on site, virtually on site, or in like their first round. So it's pretty objective. So, I can say, it's basically studying for us really. And there's only like a small behavioral component. And if I'm being honest, it's the same thing when you hire people straight out of school. It's only later on that like different things are involved, but whatever. For like the few people who might be interested in software engineering, it's really like studying data structures and algorithms and actually you know, applying those to the quote unquote like tests you're going to be given in your interviews, which is, it's kind of nice. It's kind of like a meritocratic process, but it's not, maybe not as true of, you know, every single kind of interview you're going to experience in different kinds of engineering.
So just to clarify, so you either know, you have to prove you know the stuff, right? Is that what you're saying? Like,
Yeah, ours, it's not, yeah, it's not going to be very subjective, really, like at least in a lot of like software engineering interviews. And I don't know if it's the other panelists can attest to like their fields, but yeah, ours is just knowing your stuff. It's literally stuff you learn in class and then you study on websites like HackRank and LeetCode where people kind of practice the stuff. But yeah, it's kind of a nice like meritocratic part where, you know, obviously not all of hiring is like that. So it's just one piece of it that's I kind of appreciate about the field.
great. All right, thank you. Maria A.
So in terms of like tips for high school, I would recommend, like we've already said, taking AP science classes like your AP Physics, AP Physics C, because a lot of the concepts that I learned in that and even in Project Lead the Way, I took the intro class, I took a civil engineering class, principles of engineering and digital electronics. All those concepts ended up showing up in my college courses. And because of that, it helped me feel like a little bit of a leg up on some other people. And even just helping me understand the concepts better once I got into the harder materials there. And even if you take those and end up not wanting to do engineering, but end up wanting to go into science, taking AP Physics will help you like prepare for those sorts of classes as well. I think it's a really good representation of a more difficult, like almost college level class. As for internships, something that really helps and something that actually engineers get a bad rap for is being good communicators, getting really good at talking to other people about your successes, your achievements, things that might not be as your strong suits, you know, that's what they want to like hear. They want you to be there and talk to them really well. They also look a lot for leadership roles and collaboration. I was in creative writing club at my college, and I remember a recruiter seeing that on my resume and being like, whoa, because it's just such a different environment. We have to review each other's writing, and he was really impressed to like see that level of collaboration and that I could take criticism. So these are like things that they look for. And my final point with internships is like networking, which is just building a like communication grid, I guess you can say, or web, talking to as many people as you can, keeping in touch with maybe other students, even like seniors. If you're a sophomore and you're in a club with a senior, keeping in touch with them, maybe they have a job in the future and you're interested in that company and they can help refer you to that company or give your resume to them. I know that that has helped me in the past, so.
Awesome, thanks. Maria B.
I would say that your Project Lead the Way courses in high school are really the best gateway for you and to determine what you kind of want out of your engineering career. So I took Intro to Engineering, the one where you build the car, I forget the name off the top of my head, but that was the second year. And then third year, I took Principles of Engineering. And after that, there wasn't really a senior course for me during high school. But I think that those three courses really did give me a good exposure early on to what would be coming down the line in college. As far as being in college, like Marie Anton said, leadership roles are really, really great. And if you find an organization that you love, that you want to be a leader in, and several organizations, if you decide that that's what you want to do, leadership roles really do shape you for what you will become in the business world. So if you know that you want to work on a large team, that's really great. And that's good experience for organizing all of that. As far as internships, I would say that ask every single question that comes across your desk. So if you don't know what a unit of something is, or if you have any minor question, ask your mentor, because they want to know what you don't know. And helping them determine what you don't know is really key to ensuring that you have a good internship experience, and it'll come up at the end of your review.
Thanks. And Anthony.
Some final advice, obviously take the PLTW courses. I was in most of those PLTW courses as well. I also TA'd a course my senior year, so that was a lot of fun. It was kind of an independent study where I got to do some more engineering work. And then I'd say, as well as doing all of the AP sciences, also kind of branch out and try to do some of the other APs like psychology, for example, or some other ones, because those count as gen eds that you can get out of the way. And those are, they're not annoying, but when you like to be focusing on your engineering courses, it's nice to have one of those gen eds out of the way from an AP class in high school. So like my senior year, I know I took some easy final classes instead of doing some AP, but I really wish that I had taken some AP psych or some other AP course to get some of my gen eds out of the way. And then for internships, I'd say one of the, like every single time I've done an interview, I get mostly behavioral questions from the start. So like when you first come up to when you go to a career fair, the whole first probably 2 times that you'll interact with somebody, they're just judging you based on your behavior. They don't really care what you know about. So like Maria said, communication is key. If you can't communicate with them, you'll never actually make it to the part where you can show them what you know. So, and then another question I always get is just about what hardship have you gone through, either in a team in an engineering setting or just like in general. So kind of being comfortable just with your failure as well as your places where you shine. So just something to keep in mind for the future. I know that's kind of far out, but you'll see it someday. So, and then, yeah, I mean, just stay driven, stay motivated, and you can find any opportunity like research or internships or even co-ops, which is where you go a couple of different times with the same company. So just stay motivated and don't give up, because that's all that people really want from you, and good communication. So.
Great. Yeah, definitely some great advice. You know, a lot of no matter what field you go into, a lot of it is what you know in terms of the, you know, the skill set and all that. But a lot of it also is, you know, do you seem like somebody that they're going to want at your company? Are you going to be a team player? Are you going to be professional? Are you going to be, you know, a good communicator? All those kind of things that you guys mentioned. So you can't just focus on one aspect of yourself as a professional. You have to really work on all that. And there's a lot of great opportunities, I'm sure, at every college to practice interviews, to practice. I remember when I was in college, I went on an etiquette dinner where you learn how to hold your fork and cut your bread right. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. So take advantage of those things to help prepare you, because you never know what they're looking for. Real quick, kind of the last question that was asked, and then we'll wrap up for tonight, that was about research opportunities and advice about getting involved early. So Maria A. had mentioned in the chat that it can be very easy to get involved early. Look on your college website and see the professors, what they have, what they offer. Definitely questions to ask during the admissions or application process as well. And see, you know, can you start as, you know, an undergrad? Is the research only for grads? Do you have to take certain classes first? You know, definitely questions to ask. And that could be where that big school, small school thing possibly plays in. Maria, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I actually did research my senior year, and you can start as early as your freshman year. The professors are always looking for someone to kind of take over once the senior who is already accustomed to the project that they're working on leaves. So I knew quite a few people when I was a senior that started coming on to some research projects as freshmen as well. And they ended up, I still talk to some of them now, and they're like really liking them. But that's a really easy thing to do, I would say. Professors are always looking for someone to join their research teams, and that helps you a lot, specifically if you want to continue doing research down the line, like go get a master's or something. So
Great, thank you. So I know you might have some more questions, either about specific colleges. Definitely reach out to, if you're at Hersey, myself, or if you're at another school, your counselor, and make sure that if you have specific college questions, reach out to admissions as well. Otherwise, I think our time is up. We must have lost
Hey,
Maria B somehow.
Christopher, sorry to interrupt you, but
Yeah,
I was
go
just
ahead,
gonna say, if anybody like on here is curious or has like extra questions, you could, I don't know if everyone's comfortable with this, but you can share with them my LinkedIn or email if anybody wants to ask me anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe if you're willing to, no pressure, you can put your email or however way you want to be contacted into the chat for everyone to see, and you can follow up because we are running out of time here, but there's so many great questions. We just wanted to kind of cover the surface of the engineering field, kind of from, again, high school into college and beyond. So there's no one way to go about it. There's no one, path. There's no one college that's going to guarantee, success, but really it's about finding, what's going to be a good fit for you. So trying some things, maybe not enjoying some, talking to people, doing whatever you can. So that's pretty much what I was going to kind of wrap up with. Yeah, did we, I don't know if we lost Maria B to say goodbye, but if any of you are putting your emails in the chat, make sure it's going to everyone there as well. Here she is, we got her back. You're not a co-host anymore, so let me make you real quick so you can unmute yourself. So we were just saying real quick that if you are willing to share any kind of email or LinkedIn or something, put it in the chat to everyone right now. Otherwise, thank you so much to our panelists. Again, these are young individuals who for whatever reason, got to agree to spend their Wednesday night with us. I hope they know that they weren't getting paid or anything. This is just totally volunteer, but it's really appreciated by me, by Hersey in general. So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody who joined us and asked questions tonight. If you want to rewatch this or you want to share it with your friends, I will be posting it on my YouTube page probably by the end of the week, and I can share it out if you're not a Hersey student to your school's post-secondary counselors as well, so that they can share it with you. So with that said, again, final thanks to our 4 alums. You are doing Hersey very proud, representing us, representing our community, and thank you so much. And I hope everyone stays safe and well. And have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much.